How I got revenge on my ex-boyfriend and ex-best friend. I, 28F, was dating Max, 29M, for 5 years. We were full on together. We lived together, shared finances, had 2 dogs, etc. My best friend Amy, 28F, lived 10 minutes away, so we were always with each other. We were pretty much the 3 musketeers. One day I'm scrolling on Instagram and I see my boyfriend in the background of a picture posted to our local bar's page. He was supposed to be at work and I'd never been given a reason not to trust him, so I figured it was an older picture as we go there a couple times a month. But when he got home he was wearing the same blue button-up and jeans. I had a horrible feeling in my stomach, but I didn't say anything. At night I went through his phone, yeah I know, but we've always shared passwords and have never had an issue with using each other's phones. When I checked his messages I saw a chain with someone named Jack. We didn't know a Jack, so I read through them and my heart just fucking breaks. I've known my best friend since we were in diapers, I know how she texts. But I checked the number just to be sure and yep, they were talking behind my back. Not just talking though, there were pictures and mentions of sexual acts that had happened. I spent the night crying and sending myself all of the screenshots and everything I could find. By morning, I realized that I can't just confront them. I need to prepare. So I set out to put money aside. I tell him our fridge is broken, so I'm using some of our savings to fix it, we need a plumber for this or a handyman for that. All eyes, but I needed a reason to pull money out of the account we both had access to. It took me 2 months, but I was able to pull enough out to put a deposit and pay a couple months in advance on a new app that I found that was closer to work and pet friendly. I was able to slowly move stuff there while he was at work. I told him I was doing some spring cleaning to clear out the clutter. In the meantime I fucked with their heads. I'd mention things about each other that would cause drama, like telling Max that Amy talked about a cute guy from work, or telling Amy that Max mentioned marriage and kids with me, she's infertile due to a childhood illness. The day before I was leaving I set my plan onto motion. I knew where my best friend went for lunch most days of the week, so I watched and waited. When she arrived I went in and pretended I didn't want to throttle her for breaking my trust and my heart. We sat down and chatted and I slyly mentioned sex with Max. In their messages she told him that she didn't want him to sleep with me, apparently she'd become quite possessive of my BF. I made comments about how sore I was because we did it rough just like I like it. How good he was at oral, you name it I mentioned it. Her face got redder and redder and it was amazing to watch. I'd seen her react that way before, but I never realized why. She'd always insist on watching late night movies with us or ask to sleep on our couch instead of going home and be mad when I had to say no, I want to have privacy with my BF. I just thought she was lonely or a little clingy, but I never would have imagined she didn't want to leave because she wanted to make sure we weren't having sex. Later that day I go home and once again pretend that everything is normal. But I sit down on the couch with him and snuggle up to him while he watches TV. After about 20 minutes I straddle him and ask him how his day was and blah blah blah. Then I bring up that I ran into Amy at lunch and you'll never guess who she was with. I told him how Amy was with Dave, her real-life coworker that has hung out with us multiple times, and how it's so cute that they're dating now. When I say he froze, I don't think he even breathed. He just sort of muttered, I didn't know she was seeing someone. So I tell him all about how I caught them kissing, and after Dave left to go back to work, Amy told me all about their amazing sex life. And of course I had to add in there that Dave was the first guy to give her a relo and house, she's always had to fake it with guys before. I've never seen him look so dejected before. That night I asked that we do a phone-free night, which we do often so that we could be in our own bubble. I could tell that he was a little hesitant, but he turned his phone off and put it in the basket we use for it. We watched a movie and cuddled on the couch, and he stayed as stiff as a board for the majority of it before he relaxed enough to fall asleep on the couch. Once he was out, I grabbed his work phone and sent out a contact list-wide email about how I may be in a bad mood for the next couple of weeks because my mistress gave me the clap, then I changed the passcode on it and turned it off. I knew that he wouldn't turn it on until he got to his work site that was 40 minutes away. As soon as he was out the door I immediately packed my bags, important papers and the dogs and left. I also unscrewed most light bulbs, took the batteries out of the remote, took the router plug in so he wouldn't have Wi-Fi and cranked the AC up to 80F. When I got to my new place, I sent her a text asking how my PY tastes and then blocked them both. Then I posted screenshots to my FB and let everyone know what horrible people they were. The next day his mom called me to talk things over with me. She is an amazing woman who raised him on her own whilst creating a very profitable company. He was initially set to get the company when she unfortunately passes away, but she changed her will so that he only gets the minimum dollar amount and her brother will get the company. I know that hurt him in a way I couldn't imagine because he always talked about running it and taking over for her to make her proud. I just know he cried when she told him that. My ex-neighbor Martha, 70 is an absolute shit starter. If there is drama to be had she will find it or create it. I told her I was moving out and why about a week before I left so she'd keep me in the loop in the aftermath. Amy moved in shortly after I left and through the thin walls of our duplex, Martha heard everything unfold. Apparently they fought constantly because they couldn't trust each other, go figure. Amy was always yelling about him having sex with me and how she wanted all new furniture because she couldn't sit somewhere where we hadn't been intimate. She is also a mess. Like an actual mess. She doesn't know how to clean, throw out trash, do laundry, or cook. Max has always been and will always be a neat freak. I mean everything has a place and everything should be in its place kind of man. There's no way they would be able to live together full time without wanting to strangle each other. And Mrs. Martha, bless her cheetah print soul, loved to let Amy know that Max's beautiful sister was coming over a lot now that Op was gone. Of course Max doesn't have a sister and she's lying, but boy did it have the desired effect of an all-out screaming match between them. She's angry he would cheat on her, he's angry the house looks like a garbage pit, she yells because he had sex with me in the kitchen after they had sex in her apartment, he yells that she was the biggest mistake he ever made and he wants me back. That hits her hard apparently so she starts throwing stuff at him and he calls the cops on her. She already had a bit of a record for fighting at bars and clubs, so when the police get there they detain her and have her sit on the curb out front. Mrs. Martha comes out to be nosy and see what's going on. She gives a statement about what she hears and as they are putting Amy in the back of the squad car, she yells out to Amy to not worry because she's sure Max's sister will come over to help clean the house. When I tell y'all I love this woman with all of my heart. Amy freaks the hell out and starts trying to run at Max and is apparently tossed and put in the back of a squad car. Max tells her to stop trying to interfere, but of course that means nothing to mighty Mrs. Martha, so she just smiles and goes back into her house. Amy got released a couple days later after making bail and only went back to the duplex a couple of times, both with police escorts, so we think Max took out an order of protection against her. Max has made multiple Facebook pages to message me and apologize, but I blocked them all immediately. He's called my work as well, but thankfully I work remotely and I'd already told my supervisors not to give out any information regarding me or my contact details. I don't have any siblings or family for them to reach out to, so I figured if they'd try to reach me, they would do it through my job. I'm not sure what happened with his work emails, though I'm assuming he had a lot of explaining to do to his bosses, coworkers and business connections. When I think about how he had to have that conversation over and over again, it makes me smiles. Amy has apparently moved to a new state and doesn't talk with anyone in our old friend group, probably because they all came down on her pretty hard. To think about her still breaks my heart. We've been friends all my life. When my parents died, she was my rock. She made me see past my grief and my depression and want to live again. I try to think about the good times and not let the bad times ruin them for me. When I was reading their messages I could see the evolution of the conversations and the happiness they shared at doing things behind my back. The night I was reading them it was like my ribs burned and my stomach was queasy, but I had to think logically versus emotionally. I didn't truly break down until I got to my new apartment. I just sat on the floor of my new kitchen and cried for what felt like hours. It took me a couple of weeks, but I slowly started to unpack and find a new rhythm in my new life. Juno and Meatloaf, the dogs, helped a lot too. They were a little nervous over the move and not having Max with them, but as of today they are amazing and happy we've moved somewhere with a dog park. This was 4-ish years ago so I've moved on in life, but it's definitely left some scars. I started therapy 6 months after I moved out and that's helped a lot, but I still haven't been able to put myself into a trusting relationship. I've yet to have another long-term partner as it just gives me too much anxiety and trust issues. We're picking all the grapes. My parents rent a house on a 1/4 acre of land. The land with rows of grapes is not being rented to my parents, but the landlord lets us pick them and juice them every year. The only access to the grapes is through the land my parents rent. Before my parents moved in, this old lady Maureen used to pick the grapes with her family and juice them. As a side note, Maureen has her own grapes, but she likes to use our landlord's grapes too because previous tenants did not. Every fucking year, it's a battle to make Maureen wait to pick grapes so we can pick a share. The landlord has been clear that we get first dibs on the grapes because we're his actual tenants. We always leave her at least a row, 1 of 4. Every year, she tries to be a sneaky little bitch and get the grapes. But this year was the worst. My mom told Maureen that she was going to pick the grapes this weekend. Well, this weekend came and went without being able to pick grapes. My mom's helper crew got sick, my dad was recovering from major surgery, and she couldn't find the time or energy. Maureen's crotchety old ass calls to inform my mom that she is coming tomorrow to pick all the grapes we didn't. My mom asked her to please wait a few more days as her husband, my dad, has cancer and her helpers were sick. Maureen's response. That's too bad. You had your chance. My family is coming tomorrow and we are picking the grapes. Of course my poor mom loses it at this point and begins screaming, shame on you Maureen. You call yourself a Christian. Maureen continues telling her she had her chance. So my mom came in and told me this story. I said. Absolutely fucking not. We are staying up as late as needed to pick every single grape off the vines. Every single one. We both called as many friends as we could. The troops are being gathered. We now have about 10 people to help us pick the grapes. We will pick every single grape so that when stupid Maureen and her stupid family show up, there will not be one little fruit left on the vine. All-nighter for the grapes. Update. Wow, okay, well I love how many of you would help pick grapes, it makes me feel bad about the fact that the update isn't super satisfying. Maureen called my mom last night, an hour or so into picking. To apologize and said we could have all the grapes. My mom, being a much better person than I am, told her she can still have a row or two because we didn't need all the grapes. But Maureen kept saying no and that she won't come by at all. Ironically it almost sounded like she was throwing a fit about it, like bitch we're being nice and still letting you come, so we did pick grapes but not everything. We still hate Maureen. Apparently she's 92 and she believes she will live forever because of her homemade grape juice, so that's one reason she's so crazy about this whole thing. Maybe she will live forever, but that would be unfortunate because she's an asshole. Such a Maureen. Please update when she finds out. I'm kinda envious that you know 10 people who you told your plan for petty revenge and agreed to pull an all-nighter to make it happen. My mom's super petty revenge. Many years ago, my mom, sister and I were at my aunt's house, who was hosting Thanksgiving. When it was time to leave my mom got the aluminum foil out to start wrapping her dish and my uncle complained that she was using way too much for just one dish. She argued back she was using what the dish would need to be wrapped safe and securely. He tells her if it were her foil, she wouldn't be using that much. So now, for the past 17 years, if they host Thanksgiving, my mom always brings her own roll of foil and makes eye contact with my uncle as she wraps her things. She will never let it go. Uncle foiled again and again. Oh, this video has come to an end. If you want more such cool stories, then go to one of the many following videos.